talks. It's very important for us to have this program of meetings with the artists, just to introduce who are the selected artists of the new Faenza Prize. And this program will go on till the 21st of May, each Wednesday at 2 p.m. But if you are not able to attend it online, it will stay on our YouTube channel, Mic Faenza. This year, we had the pleasure to select around 120 artists coming from a great number of nations, because the participation was important, with more than 1,300 artists and works coming from 72 nations. So it's a good number, and our jury had a great work to select both the category of under 35 and the category over. Together with me in the jury, there are important personalities of the ceramic world. Ye-Young Cho from Korea, Valentin Petico from Latvia, and Marco Maria Poloniato from Italy. As you know, the opening of this new edition of the Faenza Prize will be on June the 27th in the afternoon, and the exhibition will go on till the end of November, so you have plenty of time to visit this great exhibition, this opportunity of visiting and this great work of contemporary art. If you have any question to ask to our guest of today, you will put in the comments, and at the end of all of their talks, we can have a part for a question and, of course, answers. So we will start with the first artist, who is Victor AGIUS, coming from Malta, from the island. We know that he was graduated in the University of Malta, and he attended the St. Martin College of Art and Design in London. He is a visiting lecturer at the University of Malta, and his work is multidisciplinary works that put together sculpture, painting, video, performance, and his poetic is linked to. He's committed his research to the work, to the relationship between the earth, mother nature, and the human being. So, Victor, the floor is yours, and take your speech.
Thank you. This is not my slide.
Stefania, Victor AGIUS. Okay.
Yes, here we are. Okay, so my first images here show my sculptural works in ceramics. Mostly I use stoneware clays, which I import, but I also fuse them with local clays, which I collect also from my native island in the Mediterranean, Gozo, Malta. Most of my sculptures have a huge imprint of harsh and rugged textures. Many dialogue in the way I see earth as something spiritual, something which has hidden narratives in it, And through the rough textures of these organic primitive forms, I reflect mostly about the relationship between man and us humans, nature, and also the Anthropocene, how we interact and consume Earth and Mother Nature. These works focus also about time, the patina of time, and how the element of decay transforms material matter, in our case, clay. I also find much of an inspiration the erosion of coastal cliffs, how the Mediterranean Sea, wind, and time are like also a sculptor who is carving our coast. But there is also the element of primitive and prehistoric temples in these works, because my studio is just a few meters away from a UNESCO heritage site, Gigantia Temples, which is a megalithic structure consisting of two temples dating back to around 4,800 years before Christ. So I find these as a source of powerful inspiration, and in these sites also a lot of ceramic and prehistoric pottery artifacts were unearthed. So there is this dialogue going on. We can go to the next slide, please. All right, on the left-hand side, it's an installation on the left-hand side that was a work in situ. So here I am using ceramics not only in my studio or for a gallery space, but these are created for an installation which was site-specific. And the one on the left, it's on an altar in this temple. The altar had decorations in it, like a constellation of dots. And I tried to focus on the dialogue between our everyday quotidian. So I used a cast of a sofa, and I did these three like pala d'altare, like three pieces of reliefs which stand on this altar. And I use the number 3 because iconographically speaking, it also relates to the Trinity and the element of the number 3 in spiritual texts. I left it unglazed, so the ruggedness of the primitive stoneware clay without glaze dialogues better with the ambience of the temple. On the right-hand side, it's Imdina Cathedral in Contemporary Art Biennale in Malta, and we had to dialogue with different art. In my case, I was in dialogue with a medieval polyptych of St. Paul, painted by a Spanish artist. In Malta, St. Paul is very important because in the Gospels it said that he brought Christianity to the islands in 60 after Christ. So I literally took casts of Baroque elements in Malta which show St. Paul, but instead of using the aesthetic of figurative sculpture, I literally used terra rossa reddish clay, which I collect from across the islands where I live. So I use the islands where I live, Gozo and Malta, as my studio to excavate earth. So there is the ritual, not only in presenting the work, but also in the process. And most of the materials that I use, I collect them from building sites when they are building and excavating, and I reuse matter instead of being dumped away. I reutilize it in my works. And that was an installation showing my St. Paul's, but instead of medieval or figurative, they are very rugged and like going back to the primitive, as if I am saying that not the facial iconography of St. Paul is sacred, but only matter is speaking here. Next slide, please. And here I am showing these two slides to show my link between how clay is a timeless material. So clay is used in prehistory. Clay is a form of dialogue with everyday needs. On the left-hand side is a 3-meter sculpture. It's 3 meters in height. It's created from a Gozo native blue clay, which I excavate, and it's called Mother, and it alludes to Mother Earth, Mother Nature, as if inside this form there is spiritual and it emits power and life. On the right hand side, that is a photo which is documenting a performance I did in my family tomb in a cemetery. So before the tomb was used, I got permissions also from the authorities of the church, but I explained that this is something purely artistic and it also has a spiritual connotation in a way in it. And I did a performance where I covered my body with gozo clay to reflect on our earthly bodies, and in fact, with our relation between our bodies and the earth, to where we have to return. On the right hand side, that's a performance I did during COVID when the prehistoric temples of Gigantia were closed for the public. In fact, that is the photo of the temple which I spoke about earlier. We went there at night, so we placed some of my sculptures in a circular to emphasize the cyclicality of the elements of clay, of the seasons, of time. And I covered my body with red earth and red clay, which here we call it terra rossa. And this has a very rich red ochre element in it, and I covered my body there, and we waited for the sun for sunrise there. And I was surrounded with gozo blue clay sculptures and ceramics. Next slide, please. Now, this was a recent installation I had in Valletta, the capital city of Malta, at Spazio Creative, and this was called Sanctuary. So it was a whole hall, not room. This is just a partial photo, and it covered roughly about 28 meters squared of surface, which was covered all in terra rossa, clay, red pigments, both the floor and one of the main halls. So it was an immersive experience. It is an aesthetic work, but people visiting this show, which was for more than like a month, even find it like a meditative space. So in my research and in my practice, I focus a lot about the elements, the powerful elements of the earth and clay, and how it can be transformed and linked with many different concepts. Next slide, please. And now I'm going to talk briefly about my entry for this edition of Premio Faenza. It's called, yes, the previous one. Thank you. Yes, it's called Rite of Destruction. In this work, I am focusing on the transformative elements of clay, but also how we as humans are ritualistically, it is a sort of a ritual, how we are consuming the earth, consuming it for our everyday needs, but also for commercial reasons. And it also speaks about natural disasters. So all these things that are shown here, rite of destruction. And with these ceramics shown here, there is also the objet trouvé. So it's part of a concrete brick, which I collected from a site, which is a construction site. On the concrete brick, there are elements also of industrial spray, which is used in the industry, in the construction industry, and also traces of 23 karat gold. It's not that visible here in this photo. So this totem-like figure, which is nearly 1.2 meters in all, it is accompanied also by a porcelain plate, which is documenting a recent performance which I did in another construction sites where tons and tons, tonnellate of clay, of soil, of arable land was destroyed to make way for concrete urban structures. So you can go to the next slide. These are some close-ups of the upper part of the totem, and it shows how I am fusing clays. Here we have both stoneware and porcelain. Other details and textural elements are made by pigments and different slips. So the patina of time, the raw gesture, the primitive here is also in dialogue with the concrete brick. But in all these, there is also the protagonist, man, which is consuming, the concept of the Anthropocene, how we are consuming earth, how we are changing continually the landscape around us. Next slide, please. This is a close-up of the porcelain plate, which is documenting my body with clay all over my hands on this large landscape with native clay and soil which were being taken away to be placed in a landfill and mixed with other debris. Next, please. So the work here, it captures the enduring but fragile relationship between humanity and the natural world, a relationship shaped by both reverence and destruction. Thank you.
Thank you, Victor. It's a very interesting work. I really appreciated this link with the performance and the fact that you pay attention to the fragility of a human being in his relationship with the nature, with the clay, using clay for transmitting also a kind of spirituality of the human being in relationship with the landscape. So thank you very much, and let's go on with the presentation with Francesco Ardini, an Italian artist who lives in Veneto, close between Padua and Nove. And his studies started with architecture, if I'm not wrong. Yeah. So you are very connected with the space, but you develop also an interest in what is the dialogue with the artisans, and this return to ceramic is a part of your wonderful work that you are exhibiting especially in the recent years. So the floor is yours for the presentation.
Thank you. Thank you, Claudia. Ciao tutti. I want to share with you my journey and research on ceramics, a material I came across almost by chance during my study at the University of Architecture UAV in Venice. Someone pointed me toward the town of Nove in the north of Italy, a place with a long ceramic tradition and extraordinary concentration of artisans. Without an academic or artisanal background in ceramics, I chose to learn in a conventional way by observing and experimenting. This led me to approach ceramics with great admiration, but also a continuous challenge, a way to explore new limits for me. For me, ceramic is not just a material, it is a deeply connected to time, places, and people. My approach goes beyond the mere creation of objects. I'm interested in the anthropology of the territory, the recovery of the knowledge, and the memory of places. My work is based on the idea that even the simplest and smallest gesture can evoke emotion and tell stories. Next page, please. Okay. An example is my Polvere series, which originates from a simple act, whipping dust of ceramic, a spontaneous, almost childlike gesture that becomes an artistic action filled with meaning. Dust represents time, the past settling on objects, but also the possibility of interacting with it or leaving a mark. It also presents a challenge in terms of ceramic finishing, creating collaboration with, let me say, amazing Bottega Gatti Faenza. In Polvere Scritta, that you can see now on the screen, the work chosen in this edition of Premio Faenza, dust become a symbol of fragility and memory. The inscription, Ti amo, that means I love you, is a powerful message. Next page, please. That is destined to fade, just like feeling and time, written by someone whom only footprints remain. You can see very well the finish in this picture. Next page. In Polvere Pavimento, I faithfully recreated the floor of an old ceramic factory in Nove, using original tiles and objects that had remained unsold. Here, Dust tells the story of the decline of ceramic industry in Italy, marked by footprints and missing objects. Next page. Among the tiles, some seem out of place. They are designed by the master Pompeo Pianezzola that worked in this factory Ceramiche Zanolli in Nove for many years, bearing witness to a past that seeks to dialogue with the present. Next page. In Polvere Palette, I recovered ceramic biscuit from a company that unfortunately shut down in 2023. I fired, glazed, and dusted them, recreating the sense of abandonment I felt I saw them stuck on a pallet, ready for one last journey. Next page. This work symbolized the fate of many local companies crushed by unsustainable cost and increasing globalized market. Next page. In Polvere Pila, exhibited last year at the Carlo Zauli Museum, always in Faenza, my dust interacts with the ashes of the Zauli's work, of the finish of the glaze of Zauli, creating a chromatic and temporal dialogue between past and present. Next page. You can see very well the finishing here too. Next page, please. Finally, in Polvere Pavimento and Schizzo, I expressed the concept of dust by removing any reference of objects. Next page. The idea is to focus solely on surface and traces, a symbol of an absence. Next page. These also serve as an ironic testimony to extreme lightness and dialogue. With this work, my goal is not only to tell a personal story, but also to reflect the relationship between memory, matter, and space, because when we remove dust, we perform a powerful act, we affirm our presence, we reclaim the present, and we embrace the creative power of art. I finish with my speech about my series Polvere. I hope you enjoy it, and see you in Faenza for the exhibition. Ciao.
Thanks, Francesco. I think that your series Dust is very powerful, and there is this, if I may say, kind of big dialogue between past and present, tradition, contemporaneity, and memory and time. And the space, as we were just saying at the beginning, is something that is a major part
very
also of your
dimension,
work.
The way you live work, yes.
Yes, and I think I saw your work developing in this year, and in this series you really put the focus on all of your experiences, also in your studies, and in your appreciation of what is the real power of ceramic, which means connection.
Yeah,
so thanks a million for your presentation, and let's go on with another artist. We go on France with Olivia Barisano. She is coming from Valoris, the golden town of ceramic. And she graduated in space design, development of scenographic spaces in visual arts in Brussels, if I'm not wrong. And then since 2014, she started to work with ceramics, and she developed her poetry with clay. So Olivia, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I'm Olivia Barisano, and like you said, I'm come from southern of France, and I'm also half Italian on my father's side. And I would like to introduce my work with this image of my Italian grandmother, exactly. Before discovering and working with ceramics, I used to work with video and performance. And when I was a student in Brussels, I reconnected with my grandmother and my entire Italian family who had lived there until they migrated to Belgium. I started working a lot with my grandmother, fascinated by her daily life and in her living room, where the same gesture repeated again and again, as if time had stopped, disconnected from the modern world. I began exploring themes of family roots, memory, and the passing of time. For example, in this video, in this picture, you see remake our makeup. I asked her to apply a black cream to her face as a simple gesture. It was a tribute to my grandfather, who was a coal miner. Next, please, slide. Yes. This second picture shows the first ceramics piece I made. It was a large porcelain plate used as a support for a video of my grandmother mimicking the gestures of a farmer in her living room, referencing traditional plates that depict peasant scenes, for example. And in the next slide, please. Yes, when I started working with ceramics, it was always to talk about things I observed in my grandmother's living room. In these pieces, Memory Broom and Pickup, I began working with porcelain trinkets, what we call bibelots in French. These were the kinds of objects my grandmother collected, like wedding or holiday souvenirs, religious figurines, or teapot service. I began to I broke these objects, not my grandmother object, but which I found at the end of flea markets, and use them as chamots, mixing them into the clay. Next slide, please. Yes. This relationship with memory and daily life objects continued with my series of drawing plates, where I worked with wear and trace. By sending porcelain plates, I created patterns revealing successive color layers of porcelain until sometime piercing through, exploring the material as if to uncover hidden memory. And next, please. Another result of this process was the accumulation and collection of porcelain dust from the drawing plate series, which I refired to create a sculpture form resembling mounds or small hills. Next, please. So, returning to the work with the chamots made from porcelain trinkets, I developed another series called mortars. These are large pieces made entirely of crushed porcelain trinkets, which I grind down and refire. You can pass to the next, please. So the fragments fuse together, forming a new material that is both fragile and solid, reflecting cycles of destruction and reconstruction. And next, please. So this last project is the one I'm presenting in Faenza as an installation combining several sculptures and videos. I began to work when I moved back to south of France, especially where I live in Valoris. Perhaps you have heard of it because Valoris hosts a famous contemporary ceramics biennale also. I became interested in its history. The name Valoris, like you said, comes from the Latin Vallis Aurea, meaning golden valley, in reference to the golden colored clay found there. Now, also for its this clay was famous also for its highly refractory properties for the ceramics, but no longer exploited today. I started I started researching this famous clay, and I found some on an inactive construction site. I was fascinated by its incredible color and use it to make this kind of bricks like ingots, and also a collection of coin-like pieces. We can go to the next slide. Yes. And also to the next two. Yes. I also, in this project, sculpt shopping bags to use for cooking a meal during a performance, like we used to do in old pots long time ago in a fire, inviting a reflection on our relationship with the world and our consumption. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Olivia, for your presentation. We are very fond of Valoris because, as you know, the first edition of the Prize of Contemporary Art in 1968, if I'm not wrong, was under the patronage of Picasso, and there was our director at that time attending the opening, and so there is this kind of relationship between our two cities. And yes, returning to your presentation, I really like your idea of connecting the daily life object with the memory of the people, with the life of the people, and giving them new life. So it's very interesting, this connection with the past that is renovating and giving new stories to the object. So thank you, and we are looking forward to see your installation in Faenza. Then we go on with Daniel Joseph CAVEY, an American artist, but based in Italy since some years, and he has a professional experience on ceramic teaching, symposia, residencies, and his poetry is developing with the relationship between human beings and natural world. So the floor is yours, Daniel. Go on with your presentation.
Thank you, Claudia. First off, I would like to thank the organizers at MIC Faenza for their hard work in giving the finalists the opportunity to briefly discuss their work with the public. My name is Daniel CAVEY, and I principally work with ceramics, stoneware in particular, both wood and gas-fired. The piece that was selected for the 63rd edition is titled Belemnite Cluster, For this piece, I am drawing inspiration from belemnites, an extinct cephalopod which was closely related to the squid and cuttlefish. They roamed our seas from the Jurassic through to the Cretaceous period, roughly the same time as the dinosaurs, and became extinct by the end of the Cretaceous 66 million years ago. Belemnites had a hard internal skeleton and bullet-shaped tail, guard, or rostrum, and this is what generally remains as a fossil. It is believed they went extinct due to ocean acidification. The larval shell of their offspring would not have been able to form in acidic conditions, which is very similar to what we're seeing today due to the buildup of CO2 in our atmosphere. The sculpture is composed of a series of stoneware modules that are hand-thrown and modified. Each piece is hand-cut to seamlessly match the surface to which it is joined. I tried to establish a relationship between the components to evoke an emotional response from the viewer. Viewed from certain angles, the piece may seem unstable or that certain elements are being overwhelmed by others. Next slide, please. Through the restriction of space, an attempt to create a sense of tension for the viewer. So for those who are unfamiliar with my work, the current mass extinction event, the Holocene extinction, which we are causing, is a reoccurring theme as well as a relationship between man and nature. So as to briefly link this to similar previous works, I'll show a couple pieces from my Remnants series, which are animal skulls. Next slide, please. So this is a boar skull in particular in the photo. And in this series, they're either framed, freestanding, or hung with steel. My intentions here are to raise awareness of the animal species that parallel human societies. The structures of our ecosystems depend on these species, and yet they're continually marginalized by our activities. For the framed skulls, I decided to use the concept of the Catholic reliquary to accentuate the importance of these species and their role in the ecosystem. Next slide, please. Whereas the skulls that are hung with steel, I am more so degrading as opposed to venerating the remnants of the same species. To accomplish this, the placement of the hooks have to be invasive and visually uncomfortable. The reasoning behind this more aggressive approach was to place in evidence our attitude as a species to our own ecosystems and the intolerance and lack of compassion that we show to many of its components. This piece was part of my exhibition titled Feather as Light. Next slide. So in this exhibition, I decided to focus on birds, which are the living descendants of dinosaurs, that were wiped out along with many other species, belemnites included, by Earth's 5th extinction event when a meteorite fell on the Yucatan Peninsula. Next slide, please. So the works in this exhibition are representative of a panorama of reflections on the last extinction event, the effects of which were profound, yet paradoxically opened a window of opportunity for our ancestors. And until recently, flora and fauna abounded. However, from industrialization to the exponential increase in our population after the Second World War, mankind has placed enormous strains on natural resources and has gradually induced the Holocene extinction by undermining the very foundations that support the current biosphere. To the left in the gallery shot are my wood-fired nest of bird skulls titled Anthropogenic Nesting Solutions. Next slide. And they sort of touch on my loss of faith in man's interventions, the projection of our ideas and implication of our solutions, albeit for the welfare of another species. I feel that we are wholly incapable of accounting for the complexities of natural structures and the various constituents that shape our societies, in particular, the organizations and government entities that are necessary to safeguard habitat are disjointed. So this concludes my brief introduction to my work and thought process.
Thank you, Daniel, for your presentation. It's very interesting interaction between the forms of man and the forms of nature. This kind of framing of what are the memory of the past, this skeleton that arose from this new kind of decoration with the clay, and again. Is a kind of word that is recalling in all the presentation. The idea of the memory was present also in the recent introduction. So thank you, Daniel, for your presentation, and let's go on with KARIMA DUCHAMP. So we return to France. Hello, KARIMA. And yes, KARIMA is working between ceramic and painting, if I may say, and she explores how human beings integrate into their environment and question on our human relationship. So let's go on with your presentation. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Claudia. Thanks a lot for selecting my work for the 2025 Faenza competition. I'm really looking forward to the opening in June. So my name is KARIMA DUCHAMP. I'm a ceramic artist and a painter, as I said. I'm based in France. I'm a graduate from art school, École des Beaux-Arts, and a ceramic school. And I've always pushed my work in different directions. So my studio is for me a sacred place where I create in absolute joy and daily experimentation with clay and colors in my sculptures, my paintings, my drawings, and bring back all my experiences to my studio. So I'm presenting my work called Patience is Beauty, which is for me a mix between my different practices. So just a few words about the process. The installation is composed, here is a detail of the installation, is composed of porcelain slabs made in a unique monotype process that I create with a slab roller, a ceramic slab roller, and the prints are made on plaster with where I apply different layers of different consistencies of white, black, and red envelopes. So each tile print, being a monotype, the color is inscribed in and on the material, being cut and reshaped to focus on the surface that I find interesting. So this is the uniqueness of the process that gives a special grain, intimate touch to the installation. Then every slab is composed with the other to form a wall. Next slide, please. So each tile, as I said, is printed. About the firing, so each piece is bisqued and then fired to a gaskin up to 1270 degrees, 1270 degrees. Then I apply the lusters and refire different gold and copper lusters that I mix and draw with to create another frame, interlacing interwoven strokes to develop another dimension in the reading of the installation. The total wall installation is 3 panels of 1.95 m to 1.5 m large. So just a few words about the title, and after I will talk about the poetics of the installation. So the title, Patience is Beauty, is for me like a poem, like a mantra, a reference to time and the slow process of the making. Each piece is a monotype, being part of a bigger project. The fragile beauty of the work is modulated by socio-political reflections on contemporary life. The art of patience, mentioned in the title, is a quiet but powerful force. Slowing down and patience are mindsets that can transform the way we experience life. Patience is beauty is also rooted in the tradition of tiles, that is the tradition of tiles and ornamentation that is in all the Mediterranean world. It also refers to the symbolism of gold across centuries and in many cultures. The subject is very dear to my eyes because my idea behind the project, I wanted to relate to my work which is fragmented and started from flat to create a work with different readings, different depths, and different messages. There is this idea of contemplation. The narrative looks simple, but to me, it's a healing. It relates to my roots, my identities, as I start to rediscover my ancestors and my female lineage of craftswomen in my family, and in a larger perspective to all women in remote and hidden places. The beauty of the making with hands, the hand making also. And it talks about memory and how to transcend some fears about identity into beauty, softness, so that the world becomes soft. So my idea was to compose an abstract wall in ceramics and with a repetitive gesture that is seemingly simple, but it is pushed at its extreme. Then this mental idea turned into of a porcelain monotype, forming a whole, as I said, with an abstract motif, and being reshaped by another motif in gold lusters that spread and illuminate the installation in interlacing strokes. So you have the readings. When you come closer, you see all multiple details, and with the gold worked and reworked, there is an effect from distance and when you're going to get closer to the installation. So I wanted the work to be like fragmented and reassembled by the threads of gold with new patterns that emerge in a shimmering light. So these golden lines are like a path one can follow endlessly in a contemplative and meditative way. It's like a grid, an old fresco, to find beauty in imperfection. Something looks simple and raw. My reference go for this work were in different directions. I was attracted by, I'm always attracted by the color feed movement, like Clifford Still, where his canvases with lines represent life, and all the expressive power of color in this movement of color feed by deploying in large fields of colors that envelop the viewer in a physical experience. I also have a reference with some books, especially one that I'm reading currently about the Silk Road and the Buddhist caves and frescoes of Mogao in China, where gold symbolizes spirituality and happiness in Buddhism. I'm also very attracted by two references from my residences in China, in Japan twice, and my stays in China, and my upcoming residency in Jingdezhen this year, where hopefully I'll be able to develop this work in a larger perspective. So this work is more about the effects of time passing, patina, and so patina as a source of beauty. Next slide, please. So in the next slide is another wall installation called Vanishing of Black that I made with also monotypes, the same process, but in black and white and with black and white clays also. And I wanted the color going from up to down and was like the color was disappearing on the floor, but was materialized by a sticker on the floor where people and the viewers can walk on this installation to get closer to the wall and to see all the details of the surfaces. Next, please. This is another installation called Interiors that refers to my interest in architecture and how to inhabit corners in a room. And this evolves into more abstract composition and very colorful ones. So every slab is as thin as paper. So the color is reworked after the big fire and refired. And I like the confusion of the material, whether you don't know what it is exactly. Next, please. So this is another sculpture that I made with the same process of monotype, building up a sculpture with triangles, but I shape and reshape like I did for the tiles. And this is a series called Golden Rock with dragon scales like on the surfaces. And the use of gold lusters and copper gold lusters, mixing different golds, is something I really like to work also in my work. For me, it's like passage of time, and using all the exploration between this fragile material and becoming very strong when it's fired. And next and last slide, please. So as I said before, I'm also a painter. So what I found in one medium, I try to do it in another medium. So this is some monotypes I do on paper using the same process as I do with clay. And so I use my slab roller to make some monotypes on paper. And just to show you how I interact in between all my practices, full of joy and discoveries. I think this is it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Karima. I find very interesting this fascination for the works on tiles that recalls our Mediterranean spirit, because tiles are a base of our tradition, European tradition, and not only European, but as you said, in the North Africa, there were plenty of this production. But I will use your title as a karma. Passion is beauty, because I think that all the passion people are beautiful. And so it will be very interesting to connect your poetry and this title and your work. And let's go on to see it in presence in Faenza.
Thank you.
So thanks a million, and let's go on with another artist, Giovanni Ruggiero, Italian artist, is a sculptor that works with different materials. He won the Faenza Prize in 2011, and he is professor now at the Accademia Albertina in Turin. So the floor is yours for your presentation. Thank you, Giovanni. Devi aprire il microfono.
It's work? Okay, thank you, Claudia. Okay. I work different material because for me is most important, not the material, but the language, what the material they offer to the artist. I use the term intro rilievi to identify some of my work that have been carved out of material. They are not cast, but sculpture made directly from the negative, empty sculpture. My technique starts from the sculpture to Denis sculpture itself. I am interested in the empty space, who to make the invisible to visible. I mean the tension toward the infinite knowledge, the awareness of dignity and universal spiritual existence of the human being in broad relationship with the cosmos and the universal law that governed it. I read some books and I'm interested in the philosophy and the physics. On the philosophy who fascinates me is Giordano Bruno. He burned alive for his Brighton in Rome in Campo de' Fiori Square. My next, please. My idea for the intro rilievi. Bruce was a Dominican philosopher, friar. He started out Naples and spread his idea all over Europe. He stayed in Naples, Rome, taught to the University of Paris and London. From Bruno, the universe is a single infinite body with a precise order to the construction. Every single things and connect in will all the others. Next, please. Bruno connected the idea of the Greek pre-Socratic philosopher and like it to the Egyptian culture. The pre-Socratic philosopher were many concerned with atomic and cosmological problem, where everything is connected to everything. In the last century, Bruno's writing has been taken up with the interest by some physical research. Next, please. In the last century, with the scientific discovery of quantum physics, the physiological thought of Giordano Bruno become extremely contemporary actuality. Next, please. The quantum mechanics theory discovered by Max Planck, who first hypothesized and imagined light and begin make up of the quanta of light and energy. The photon is the elementary unit of light. In particular, atoms absorb and emitting light radiation discontinually. Next, please. Thanks to this theory, Planck won the Nobel Prize in the Physical in 1918. In summary, Giordano Bruno take up expand of the thought and atomism of the Greek philosopher before Socrates. Next, please. In which the philosopher spectra the microcosmos and the macrocosmos, the visible and visible, in demonstrated by the scientific theory of Max Planck. Next, please. In which idea the soul of the cosmos is a pregnant the structure and the universe where everything is connected in entanglement. The work submit for the competition Infiniti e Universi Mondi is about the Bruno connection in entanglement. Next, please. Yes, this my work is the gift to the Brighton to the Giordano Bruno. Next, please. The same like this is the matter. They lack to the energy. Next, please. Yeah, it's the same. This is the aspire to the Brighton to the Giordano Bruno. Next, please. At the same, this is the step to the life to the people in this art. Next. Finish. I'm finished.
Finish. Thank you, Giovanni, for your presentation. As we understood, the man is the center of your poetry, and you put together the energy of philosophy, physics, and art, and kind of great atomos and of the cosmos. So we will look forward to see your installation at the Faenza Prize. So we go to the next artist, Antonia Salmon, British artist. She has a long story of exhibition, workshop, lecturing in ceramics, with many presentations in public and private venue and collection in all over the world. And I can say that her works aim to capture the connection with the elemental world, and her sculptures are timeless, contemporary, and the source of contemplation. The floor is yours, Antonia.
Thank you, Claudia. It's been very interesting to listen to all the other artists today. So what I want to do is to just share some aspects of my life, and I hope it'll give you some insight into my work. I never actually consciously chose to work with clay. It was as if clay chose to work with me. And in my first contact with clay at the age of 4, I experienced a great surge of heat in my hands and energy in my body. And the memory of this visceral experience has driven all of my work since then. So my artwork is not so much intellectual expression, but more of an inquiry into the direct experiencing in the world. And here you can see an image of the landscape of the Peak District National Park, which is very near to my home in England. It's very important for me to live close to beautiful green open spaces. My joy and vitality is at its most intense in nature, and I associate the natural world as a safe and creative space. So today, as I walk in the landscape, I feel immersed as if moving through a vast sculpture. I love the unpredictability of nature. I explore the intimate spaces, the qualities of volume, form, shadow, light, and I have the feeling as if I'm walking upon a huge living body. Later then, when I'm making sculpture, whatever scale it is, I experience this same sense of immersion. I studied geography and geology at university in order to understand the story of our landscape. And later I enrolled on a studio pottery course, but soon turned towards making sculpture in order to have greater expression. So we could have the next slide, please. I became fascinated in the architecture of the Islamic world, which uses geometry as its foundation. And I was experimenting with combining organic form with geometric formality. And it's shown here in this sculpture of a screen, which is hand-burnished red earthenware. Geometry as structure remains an important consideration in my work today. So from early on, I always wanted to work with the naked clay, that is non-glazed ceramics, as it kept me connected with the sense of the material of clay. If we have the next slide, please. This I call a closed boat form, which was an early experiment with burnishing and smoke firing. I really love the uncertainty of this firing method, which imparts both subtle finishes and sometimes very dramatic flashings of carbon, and that really contrasts with the honed forms that I make. Of course, burying the sculptures in burning wood is a very dangerous firing mode for my work, and I get many breakages. It's very uncertain. Our world, as we know, is increasingly complex and dark. So for many years, I have felt my work has been to distill the complexity and to bring light and beauty. I strongly advocate the notion that less is more. And I make sculptures that capture the polarities of energy within one form. For example, stillness and dynamism, or holding, letting go, silence and sound. And if we have the next slide, please. This is a photograph of Touch Point. Is it inspired by looking at the junction between rocks? I just love that slim space where they just touch. And I'm hoping that this work gives a feeling of the density and the stability of the rocks. And then there are fine incised lines to create a sense of alertness. Now, after 40 years of making, I realize that every sculpture I make is actually capturing a state of being. That is, a state of being at just one moment in time. Many people tell me that my work does feel timeless because of this approach. So we have the next slide, please. This sculpture is called Windrush, and it's very much about a state of being, but this time I was being thrown about in a storm on top of the hills near my home. I do walk a lot on my own, and when I stand very still in the landscape, I experience the deep connection between my humanity and the more than human world. I no longer feel any separation. These days, listening to sound is an aspect that has become almost more important in inspiration than looking. And if we see the next slide, this one is the sound of water in a very fast flowing river after the storm. And so, in summary, I can say that my ceramic work seeks to express a combination of ecological awareness with somatic awareness. And this is my direction for all future exploration. So if we have the next slide, this is my submission for the Premio Faenza Prize. Here, my interest is that very particular moment of poise just before flight. My aim is to express a state of intense focus, balance, and expansive power. And I really hope that you, the viewer, might sense the stillness and also the vital energy within this one form. So that's me for now. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Antonia, for your presentation. And it's a kind of new humanism that you are transmitting us through your essential and pure forms. I took your word, the state of being, and we put it together with the calmness and the patience that we need in this particular time of our world. And this feeling of nature is very important and powerful in your work. And I think the respect of nature is a part of our human beings and our behavior for the future. So thank you, Antonia, for your presentation, and we go on with the panel with all the artists. We don't have a question from the public, and I'd like to thank you all. If you want to say something more after your presentation, you can say something if you want. Otherwise, we will close this first talk, giving you the invitation for next Wednesday, the March 19, with Ye-Young Cho, who will talk with Martin Smith, Jennifer McCarty, Sapana Gandharp, Sophie Gier, Ye-Young Su, and Mirko De Nicolò. So another new panel from all over the world, because we have different situations and different countries arriving to our panel. And so thank you very much for being with us. And of course, you can watch and listen our guest, our artist, on our YouTube channel also in the coming days. Okay, thank you very much. Enjoy. See you next week.
Thank you.
Bye.